Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we would be seeing on how we can create temporary and transient tables using both SQL and Python in Snowflake. So let's check some background about what is temporary table and what is transient table and its differences. So coming to temporary table, temporary tables are nothing but tables which are created within the session. When you create an ETL job, a table created in the ETL process, that's called temporary table. For suppose you are running a stored procedure in Snowflake, so if you are creating any table inside the stored proc, then that is called a temporary table. I mean, you can mention it as a temporary table. If you can create even the permanent tables as well inside the stored proc. So I'm just saying, like, temporary tables are tables which are created and valid only till the session. Once the session ends, the tables are no more existed in our database. And one primary thing is, like, if we can create a temporary table with the same name as a permanent tables as well. Let's assume you have a permanent table named Praveen, and again you have created another temporary table named Praveen. So when you query the data, select star from Praveen inside the session, you will get the data from temporary table only. You don't get the data from primary table. I'll show you that example as well. And also only available within the session. That's what it says. Automatically deleted when the session ends. So temporary table contributes to a storage clause as long as they exist in the session. So how long we have the temporary table and how much of data it consumed. So that cost will be coming to our billing. So temporary tables can have the same name as a permanent or transient tables in the schema, but temporary tables will take the precedence within the session. So cannot be converted into any other table type. You can't convert a temporary table into a permanent table. And next we have transient tables, which is a little bit beyond the temporary table. Like it has the scope beyond the session as well. So for storing transient data beyond the session, but without fail safe recovery. So like if you delete a permanent table in Snowflake, after the time travel period, even you can recover it by contacting to the Snowflake support team. But if it's a transient table, you can't recover that specific table once it is deleted. It exists until it explicitly dropped, but once dropped, you can't get that back, which is not the case in permanent table, where you can get that back the table even after deleting. So contributes to the storage cost but does not incur fail-safe charges. And for suppose a transient table can be created by cloning some permanent table. So when you do that, you don't get charged again for this transient table, because this transient table is cloned from that permanent table. So it is using the same storage as the permanent table. So again, when you try to update or insert try to do some DML on the transient table, then you will get the another partitions micro partitions gets created. That time the charges starts for your transient table. Now let's see a little bit differences. Okay, temporary tables until session ends, transient table until explicitly dropped, permanent table also until explicitly dropped. And time travel retention is like 0 to 90 days. You can go back to the previous version of the table. It's just 0 to 1 days only. And failsafe, no. Once it is deleted, even after 7 days, till 7 days, you can recover back the table. But temporary and transient table, you can't recover back. Now let's see a little bit differences between the permanent and transient table. Exists until explicitly dropped. These also exist until explicitly dropped. Supports up to 90 days of time travel, 1 day of time travel, no fail safe. Once it is deleted, it's gone, the transient table. But the permanent table, once it's deleted, you can get back till the next 7 days as well. So use cases for critical long-term data that needs recovery options. For temporary intermediate tables, you can use these transient tables. Now let's go and see some practical examples. So now I have a SQL workbook here. If you see, I just created a database, I just created a schema, and to create temporary table, you have to use create temporary table and the column names. You just have to mention the temporary here. For the transient table, you have to mention the transient. That's the only difference. If you don't mention anything, then that means it's a permanent table. Just a simple insert statements. And you can query. No, so in case if you want to create a transient table out of some permanent table, create transient table name, clone the permanent table. That's what has happened. So now if you see here, so now I'm just creating a permanent table here, Praveen table, and I'm inserting 3 records into this. So again, when I just query, I'll be getting 3 particular rows. So now I'll create I'll create a temporary table with the same name as Praveen table, which gets created, and I have inserted 1 row in it, And now when I query, the data will come from the temporary table. So temporary table will have the more precedence than the permanent table. So if you see, we got only one row. Like that, you can even create the transient table using transient as well. Just in the here you can create the transient. Here you can replace with the transient and you can create, or else you can clone from this existing permanent table. That's it. So this is how we create temporary tables or transient tables in SQL. Now we can do the same in using Python as well. In Python, in case if you have opened this plus and click on Python worksheet, then you have to select the database and all. Once you have selected the database, now you have to go to packages and you have to select the required packages here. Here if you see, I'm using the Snowflake package, snowflake.snowpark package, Python package, snowflake.core package. So I've selected all the required packages. Just go to packages, search the packages you want and then select them. That's it. Now these are the import statements, and here the Python code starts with the main function and it should have a return type as well. So inside which I'm creating a table. Here if you see, I'm using this particular table class to create the table, the name of the table, the columns and the kind. Here you can either pass temporary or you can pass transient as well. So you can create a table like this using the Python code or the Snowpark code. And now I'm just creating a root here based out of the session, and from that root I'm just selecting the database and the schema and dot tables dot create and this particular table. So this is how I can create the table. And now to read that specific table, you can just use the session dot table of and the table name, and that data frame dot show will just print it out and you can run it. We'll get the table named py2 here. And we did not insert any data. You can insert the, again you can use some pandas and all or something, and for that you have to select the pandas package here and you can load the data. I'm just showing you on how to create a table using Python in Snowflake. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.